security gig.
Hello?
Welcome to Freddy's. Have you met them yet?
Met who?
Foxy, Bonnie, Chica, and Freddy.
Halloween står for døren, og derfor er det vel ganske passende, at de danske biografsale netop nu er fyldt med gruopvækkende monstre. Gyserfilmen Five Nights at Freddy's er baseret på den ekstremt populære spilserie af samme navn.
Welcome to Freddy's Pizza. There's really nothing to worry about.
Det første spil udkom tilbage i 2014, hvor man i rollen som en sikkerhedschef i en skummel restaurant bakser med flere drabelige kæmpe robotter. I årenes løb har spillet fået en håndfuld fortsættelser og millioner af fans, så derfor er det intet under, at Hollywood nu har lavet en filmatisering. Det er dog lidt spøjst, at filmen har været så længe undervejs. De seneste år har vi fået filmene Willy's Wonderland og The Banana Splits Movie, som tydeligvis er inspireret af Freddy's-spillene. Og Harry Potter-instruktøren Chris Columbus var tilknyttet filmatiseringen i et par år, men han blev erstattet i 2022 af den relativt ukendte Emma Tammy, som nok er bedst kendt for den kritikerroste gyser The Wind.
This land is funny, you know. The wind never stops. Plays tricks on your mind.
The Wind blev skudt af filmfotografen Lyn Moncrief, som blandt andet står bag billedsiderne i indie-dramaer som Vengeance.
The truth is too hard to accept.
Og The Passenger.
And if I'm gonna help you, then I can't have you getting in my way. Because it forces me to hurt you.
Det er altså interessant, at et af spilhistoriens største kommercielle hits blev filmatiseret af et par relativt ukendte independent-filmskabere.
Bobby, go!
Og da vi forleden interviewede Moncrief, må vi selvfølgelig også lige høre, hvordan filmfotografen reagerede, da han blev tilbudt projektet.
You'd worked with director Emma Tammy before. What was your first instinct? What were your first thoughts when she rang you up and said, I want to do this movie based on this really popular game franchise about deadly giant possessed killer robots? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I am not a gamer, or I haven't been since the 70s and 80s, which is great because so much of the context is from the era for when I grew up playing Atari and early Nintendo. So that's kind of my era. She had explained what you described, and I was very intrigued. And then I read her script, and why I love working with Emma is that she also finds the hearts of things. I think the most successful films are the ones you really pulled in by the characters.
Hi, this is Mike. I was just calling to see if that job that you offered was still available.
Yes. The security guard.
I will take anything.
I think we were both giddy just having those initial discussions about what are the possibilities of this world, and how do we create the tone of it.
And speaking of those early discussions, I was wondering, what sort of research do you do? Because, of course, like you said, you just told me you're not a gamer anymore, but, do you study, footage of the game and stills? And I mean, the interesting thing, I guess, is that it's very much a game series that's so much driven by the visual storytelling, and also by the framing of the images as well. So I guess that must have been really interesting.
It was absolutely fascinating because, this is my first time working with a project in which there's already so much built canon into something. I mean, I think that was one of the first things she said to me too, is read the script, come over, let's play the game. And we played the game together, and she was like, take a look at these things, do this. And so it became my own research. I bought, I think, every book that's been made by Five Nights at Freddy's, beyond just the gameplay, but just to get an understand of just how rich everything is. And what was actually to my advantage is I have a 9-year-old daughter. As soon as I started having all this material around and also buying figurines and other things, I mean, instantly she's like, what are you doing? And I start playing the game. She wants to be involved with that. So inadvertently brought in kind of an unofficial research assistant with me, because and she started watching all the YouTube series, everything, and she would just tell me every day, like, some new aspect she learned. So firsthand, I saw how, like, how captivating the gameplay is to such a large kind of audience. And it was important for us to bring in the tonal aspects that why the game was so successful. Even the first one, I mean, it's a very first person player element. You're limited in what you can see and what information you're given at what time, and certain types of scares. We really wanted to match that tone that makes that game so successful. And certainly there's lots of nods. I mean, the security camera footage is so important. We knew that had to be important. There were nods on how we were going to frame things, Easter eggs throughout. And then beyond that, creatively, it was other films we looked at just in tonally, especially like Jurassic Park was, I think, a very important one because of what is wonderment in one aspect then becomes a complete horror on the other. And you have Abby, who sees things through a different viewpoint versus Mike.
Hello?
And just that idea of what you see as magical as a child can be completely horrific as an adult. We looked at other tonal movies, Poltergeist, The Thing as well. I just think, like, the idea of paranoia. Emma and I also talked a lot about The Shining. I was like, I want the Freddy Fazbear's to be like the Overlook Hotel of pizzerias. It's like not only the animatronics, but you really want this place of suspense, and you don't quite know what's around every corner. It's like Danny going through the hallways of the Overlook, and that feeling of dread. And so those were kind of just our inspirations beyond just what was already there.
You mentioned the animatronics, and I just want to hear, it's a twofold question. First of all, working with those in a creative way, lighting them, so that making them scary, working with them in a creative way to make them interesting in terms of the movie, but also the practicality of it, of working around this huge machinery with so many puppeteers involved. The challenges that are in that. So both the creative and the practical challenge of working with these machines. How was that?
It was awesome. Jim Henson Company is like, it was a dream realized. We started doing camera tests very early with them at the Creature Shop here in Burbank, just to understand, how do they photograph? What type of lenses are things going to look distorted? How's the fabric going to look under certain lighting conditions? And with the puppeteers, how they move, how the joints move in this and different configurations. It took me back because at the same time too, when we started to do the test, it was the 40th year anniversary of the Dark Crystal. And I had seen that as a kid and was absolutely amazed. And in their shop, they had all the original figures out for display. They really are masters of the fantasy world and making these things come to life. I think there were so many teams, involved with just making sure that they can work well on set. And, that was just an exciting aspect to be involved with.
Visually, I love the fact that the world outside the restaurant seemed to be, deliberately a bit drab. Like there's a lot of yellows and grays and browns, which make the contrast to the restaurant so much clearer. And the neon lights, the arcade lights, that's really emphasizing that you're stepping into a different world. Was that a deliberate choice?
It was. Emma and I discussed early on, just kind of, you've got what's Freddy's and everything outside Freddy's. And certainly we wanted that contrast of real life. And then when you go into Mike's perspective of going in, and then certainly Abby's perspective, because that's very different. And then even within that, there's arcs and, as the nights progress, which from a creative point is a really fantastic thing. You have this kind of ticking time bomb element. There's 5 nights of Freddy's. You're taking that step ladder. For Emma, she doesn't want to hit you right over with 10. You've got to have these gradations, and you've got to build somewhere. And that's very important to her. So it was a very conscious discussion to have an aesthetic that's inside and outside Freddy's.
Ghost children possessing giant robots.
Tell me how to stop them.
You don't. It's too late. He's coming.